Writing is incredibly powerful. It can inspire people, but also destroy them. It can command respect, but it can also make you look like a fool. And it can sell you something, or make you walk away in confusion. It connects us to virtually all of human history, and it's the backbone of all the media we enjoy today. And unlike speech, once you write something, it's there forever. Sound waves disappear, and we can't talk to Socrates today, but we can read his work thousands of years after his death, which is crazy. This is not some mystical power that you have to climb a mountain to learn. It's open to everybody, including you. So whether you want to write a book or sell your skills online or just share the ideas you love, then writing is the skill to learn. I've been writing properly for about a quarter of my life, which sounds more impressive than it actually is because I'm young, but still. And in the past 2 years, almost 2 years, I ramped that up with writing the video scripts, the newsletters, and now a book I'm working on, which is hopefully finished soonish. It sounds surreal to say, but writing's how I live. I know I'm not the best writer, and I have lots to learn still. And I'm just telling you that so that you know I'm not talking out my arse. These tips come from somewhere, and I'm just sharing what has worked for me along the way. Tip 1 is to be entertaining, not just informative. My very first and most embarrassing experience with writing was when I used to write these little informational posts on Instagram about whatever I was learning at the time. And it was mostly for fun, fine. But I wanted people to read them. My page was public and I hoped that someone would learn something from them. And I was delusional in thinking that for one big reason. Well, was it the topics I chose? Not really. I mean, I covered things like ecology, historical tech, political movements. Sounds pretty good to me. So then was it the length? I don't think so. I mean, my posts were short and they got to the point. And this was before Reels was a thing. So you still had hope against the brain rot. So what was it then? What was making my posts, flop so hard? The reality was my writing was boring as fuck. I had the weird idea that all informative writing was supposed to be as direct and to the point as possible. And clarity is of course important, you should be clear, but that's no excuse to be boring in the process. Because of that mindset, my writing sounded like a Wikipedia article. You could probably open your tax slip and have more fun reading that. So whenever you write, make sure to also entertain. And I don't mean to be a clown and be goofy in every sentence, but try not to be too dry, unless the writing really demands it. For example, I like to sprinkle in some stories into my writing. I like to add some humor, some drama, some prose, and even just a nice metaphor or some interesting words can spice it up a bit to make it sing a little. So remember, it never hurts to entertain people. Tip 2 is that, hey, come here. And now he's attacking. Yes, punch the fire, that's a good idea. Tip 2 is that good writing must flow. As a writer, you're in a life or death battle. And that sounds kind of dramatic, but it's true. At any moment, your reader could decide, okay, I'm bored, I'm confused, goodbye, piss off, your writing's weird, I'm leaving. It's harsh to accept, but every single sentence has to keep them involved. It has to give them a reason to continue. And there's a lot of ways to do that, of course, but part of it is avoiding clunkiness and improving the flow of your writing. You want to avoid bits that sound clunky, or bits that confuse your reader where they think, bro, what are you talking about? And that includes, weird tangents or derailments from the original point that just have no relevance. All of these cause friction in the reading experience, which makes it harder and harder to continue every time. And if that doesn't make sense to you, then you can look at it from the other side. I bet you can name me a book right now that flowed so well you lost track of time. One of those books that you start reading and then 2 hours later, before you even realize it, you look at the clock, oh shit, it's 1 a.m. It happens. For some reason, I'm not sure why, for me that was Nelson Mandela's autobiography. It's not what I expected either, but I recommend it, it's a good book. That's the power of flow, and you can do it in a number of ways. For me, the big one, the main one, is to make sure your logical steps are clear. Are you leading the reader from A to B without any confusion or ambiguity in between? It's also good to format your writing in a way that makes it obvious when one point ends and the other one starts. Usually you do that with paragraphs and introductory sentences, things like that. Just make it obvious what you're trying to say. Also, this might just be me, but I like to get only 1 point across per section or per piece of writing. I find that if you try to introduce too many ideas in one, it gets confusing and you lose track of what you're trying to say and your reader doesn't understand. So I try my best to say, before I write, what is the one thing I want to get across? And I try and just do that properly. And here's a nice bonus tip. When you edit your work, read it out loud. I find that helps you capture bits that sound a bit strange, a bit awkward, things that you might have missed otherwise. This video is just a tiny drop of writing advice in a massive ocean. And there's so much to learn out there, and I'm always looking for new tips and techniques to not only try myself, but then to share with you if I think they're good. One of my favorite places for doing that is Skillshare, who I'm glad to say is sponsoring this video. Skillshare is the internet's largest catalog of learning, with thousands of classes in pretty much every creative area you could imagine, including some of my personal favorites like film, productivity, and of course the beautiful art of writing. If you want to learn skills for your career or simply get better at the hobbies you love, then this is the first place to go. I remember using classes on video editing and filmmaking to help get my channel off the ground in the early stages. And more recently, I did some copywriting, which I don't know much about, and it's always nice to have an expert there to guide you through the process. Most recently, I did a class about writing creatively from our guy Robin Walden, who you probably know from YouTube as well. And it was super interesting, it was well produced, and no matter what you write, there's something valuable in it for everyone. To explore everything Skillshare offers at your own pace, click the link in the description. And the first 500 people to do so will get a 1-month free trial. So do have a look. I've always loved using Skillshare and I'm sure you'll enjoy it just as much. Hey, you stole my chair. Tip 3 is to get your hook right. Your hook is the opening of your text. It's your first impression with the reader, so just like in real life, you better make sure it's bloody good. If you screw up here, people will judge the rest of the text more harshly. And that's if you're lucky. Most of the time they'll just click off and ignore you forever. And this is not just in books or articles. This is in all media because it is that important. For example, Breaking Bad, the show, has all these weird intros at the start, which build a sense of mystery. Lots of YouTubers do a mini compilation of all the exciting parts of the video, and they put it at the beginning to make you watch more. And if you go on the subway, the metro, tube, whatever, all the adverts on the train have all these bold, provocative one-liners, and that makes you look. Those are all hooks. In this video, I opened with a bold statement and then some emotional language. And I hope you see that and you think, oh, okay, it sounds interesting. I'll continue watching. Obviously, you then have to deliver on that promise, otherwise it becomes clickbait. The point is to just catch your reader's attention amidst all that sea of content out there and make them continue reading. There's loads of good ways to hook your reader, so I'm just going to list a few here. 1. Ask a question they want the answer to. 2. Stun them with a provocative statement. 3. Use statistics to make your content sound authoritative. 4. Lay out a problem of theirs that you'll go on to solve. 5. Use emotional language to tug at their feelings. 6. Throw them in the middle of an engaging story. 7. Offer a shared goal they seek help with. Tip 4 is to write for your audience, not yourself. Many writers, especially new ones, are selfish. And the worst part is, they don't even mean to be. And I know it sounds a bit mad, it sounds like an accusation, but hear me out here. As a writer, writing for others, your main goal is to serve your reader. Not to explore yourself, not to come across as edgy and mysterious, not to find some enlightenment. Of course, you can do that, and you should sometimes, but it's all secondary to your main goal of serving the reader. For example, fiction writers have to entertain you. History writers have to share a narrative to inform you. And philosophers have to argue a point, they have to explore a topic so that you can learn and understand. My job in this video is to give you some good writing tips. And if you feel I'm not doing that, you have every right to leave, and you should. It's the same with all authors. If they don't serve their audience, then there is no audience. There's no reason to even read them. It reminds me of when I was in The Hague in the Netherlands pretty recently, and I was walking through this nice upscale, maybe posh street. You know, the ones with the independent cafes, the tobacco shops, the luxury watches, that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, I love those streets, they're great. But whenever you go into these wealthy, sort of liberal areas, you also find a lot of pretentious art galleries. And in these art galleries, it's always some random guy expressing his made-up struggles through an abstract medium that no one really understands. And I always wonder, who cares? Who would go in there? What is there for me to gain, you know? And I know I'm being a full-on hater right now, I accept that. But it makes me think, how are they serving any viewer? What are they doing for them? There's no reason to go inside and enjoy anything because you can't understand anything. Maybe they don't want to serve anyone, and that's fine, you don't have to. But if you want people to read your writing, to enjoy your work, then there has to be something in it for them. And just to clarify, you can absolutely talk about yourself, just in a way that also benefits your reader. I always talk about my stories and my struggles, not to, be all self-absorbed, but so that maybe you can learn something from them, or so that you can relate to them, or see a point I'm trying to get across. The point is, if you want people to read your work, you have to do something for them. Tip number 5 is to be precise in your writing for better imagery. Let me ask you this. Why is a good novel so gripping? Well, it's a good plot, it has some level of mystery, and the writing is smooth. Now that's all great, but there's one more quality that helps that you can apply to pretty much any type of writing. Imagery. Imagery is what you get your readers to imagine up here as they read. It's the description of the settings, the characters, the action. And the better you can describe that, the more vivid and exciting their image will be in their head. You might think it's only a fiction thing, but that is not true at all. Storytelling is everywhere, and even if you write non-fiction, you can use it to get points across. One way to make your imagery more realistic and exciting is to use precise details. For example, in the last point, I could have just told you that I was walking through a rich area in a city. Okay, you can kind of picture that, it's all right. But I mentioned that it was The Hague, I mentioned that there were cafes and tobacco shops, and those 3 simple details let you make a much more vivid picture of what is happening, a much more realistic one. And it's such a tiny little bit of effort, but it goes a long way in your reader's head. It's like saying a carved mahogany table instead of just a table, or saying it was a UPS delivery van instead of just a van. It's very small, but it changes the picture in your head completely. And those are 5 tips I love and enjoy using in my own writing. And as always, I thank you for watching this far, and I'd also love to hear what you use. Have you used any of these tips? Have you tried anything else that's worked for you? Because there's so many out there. There's so many good, unique pieces of advice that we don't really see very often. And if we share with each other in the comment section, it's really helpful. It helps everyone. It's great. And as always, my email's open. If you want to send me a message, I read everything eventually and respond. And if you like these videos, then you'll also like the newsletter, which is linked down below. It's completely free, not spammy at all. And we talk about, yes, some of the usual topics there, reading, writing, creativity, but also some more interesting things, some more unique things, like there's occasional book reviews. I just did a giveaway of Obsidian credit, mini essays, things like that you wouldn't see here. So do have a look, I'm sure you'll enjoy.